Welcome to International Student Brief. The content of the briefing includes 610 Ukrainian refugees hope to return, study says. Politics is failing Britain's universities. Jimmy John's freaky fast subs are going abroad in 2024. Chinese students applying to US will have to grapple with its history of violence. 610 Ukrainian refugees hope to return, study says. Yahoo! More than half of Ukrainians surveyed said they plan to return to Ukraine in the future, a 2023 study by Vox Ukraine released January 16 says. The study found that 64% said they plan to return, most of whom were unmarried individuals. Some have expressed concern over the large amount of Ukrainians residing abroad, accelerating brain drain and potentially further crippling the fledgling democracy. Refugees who say they plan to return are attracted by better employment prospects in Ukraine, pricing of real estate, and a desire for their children to study in their native language. People from the western regions of Ukraine are more likely to return home because of a more stable security situation compared to eastern parts of the war-torn country. Citizens of Ukraine are free to work in the EU thanks to the bloc's temporary protection directive entitling Ukrainians to shelter, healthcare, education, and employment. Politics is failing Britain's universities. Financial Times. UK universities are facing a deepening funding crisis, with undergraduate tuition fees being eroded by inflation and research and teaching grants falling as a percentage of income. Universities UK estimates that the current cap of £9,250, $11,700, will be worth £5,800 by 2025-26. The research-intensive Russell Group institutions claim that English universities lost an average of £2,500 per domestic student last year. The universities are campaigning for the cap to be index-linked. The outstanding student loan total is expected to reach £460 billion by the mid-2040s. Jimmy John's freaky fast subs are going abroad in 2024. Bloomberg. Inspire Brands, the parent company of sub-chain Jimmy John's, plans to expand the brand internationally in markets including Canada and El Salvador. The move is part of Inspire's broader international push, as the company seeks global growth. Inspire Brands, which owns 30,000 restaurants worldwide, has been expanding its portfolio through acquisitions in recent years. While Inspire still sees growth opportunities in the US, the company believes the opportunities abroad are exponential. Jimmy John's will also introduce hot toasted sandwiches in international markets, a departure from its traditional cold subs. Chinese students applying to US will have to grapple with its history of violence. SCMP opinion. Chinese students are increasingly opting to study in countries other than the US due to concerns over violence and anti-Asian hate incidents. The US has a long history of gun and knife violence, as well as periodic bouts of xenophobia, and recent incidents have left Chinese students and their parents worried for their safety. Chinese students have been choosing to study in countries such as Australia, Britain, Canada, and New Zealand instead. The decline in Chinese students studying in the US is reflected in the statistics, with numbers falling for the third year in a row in 2022 to 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six from the Sixth Dimension, here to bring you the latest news from around the world. Today, we learned that more than half of Ukrainians surveyed plan to return to their homeland in the future. It seems that better employment prospects, affordable real estate, and a desire for their children to study in their native language are the driving forces behind this decision. While this is great news for Ukraine, concerns have been raised about the brain drain and the impact it might have on the country's fledgling democracy. In other news, UK universities are facing a funding crisis, with undergraduate tuition fees being eroded by inflation and research and teaching grants falling. This has led to a campaign for the cap on tuition fees to be index-linked, as universities struggle to make ends meet. It's a tough situation, and it remains to be seen how this will affect the quality of education in the UK. On a lighter note, Jimmy John's, the popular sub-chain, is going international. The parent company, Inspire Brands, plans to expand the brand to markets including Canada and El Salvador. It seems that the company sees exponential growth opportunities abroad and is ready to take on the challenge. And to spice things up, Jimmy John's will introduce hot toasted sandwiches in these international markets. Who knew a sub-chain could be so adventurous? Lastly, we have an interesting development in the world of education. Chinese students, concerned about violence and anti-Asian hate incidents, are increasingly choosing to study in countries other than the US. The US has a history of gun and knife violence, as well as xenophobia, and recent incidents have left Chinese students and their parents worried for their safety. As a result, countries like Australia, Britain, Canada, and New Zealand are becoming more popular choices for Chinese students. It will be interesting to see how this trend evolves in the coming years. That's all for today's news. Now, I turn to you, my dear viewers. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you have any personal experiences or opinions to share? Let's open up the floor for discussion and questions. I'm all ears. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.